it's Paul, and in this video I'm bringing you a really interesting case that happened recently. I have to tell you, it's a tough case. While I was researching it, honestly, it really affected me. I felt like crying. So if you're very sensitive, maybe you shouldn't watch this video. We're going to be talking about Lindsay Clancy, who seemed to be the perfect mother and wife. Until January 2023, when she took the lives of her 3 children. Lindsay was born in 1990 in Willington, Connecticut, United States. She studied nursing, and after graduating, she started working at Massachusetts General Hospital. It was around this time that she met a man named Patrick Clancy. Lindsay said that from the moment she met him, she knew he was the love of her life. And Patrick felt the same way. He hadn't known Lindsay for very long, but he already realized he wanted to start a family with her. After dating for a while, Patrick proposed to her, and then they had a beautiful wedding. They moved to a small town called Duxbury, which is located about 30 minutes from Boston. Everything seemed perfect in their marriage. They loved each other very much, had a lovely house, and by 2022 they already had 3 adorable children. The oldest daughter was named Cora, the middle child Dawson, and the baby Colin. All of them were 2 years apart in age. Family and friends said they seemed like a model family. They loved their children, were always attentive to them, and in general, they seemed very happy. People said very positive things about the family, especially about Lindsay, who, despite having 3 kids, was always seen smiling and full of energy. Patrick used to say that he admired Lindsay a lot for being the best mom in the world. Or so he thought. In January 2023, Lindsay took her daughter Cora, who was 5 years old, to the pediatrician. It was just a checkup. She was healthy. When they got home, Cora and Dawson asked their mom if they could play outside, and she said yes, so the 3 of them went out to play. It was winter, it had snowed, and they decided to build a snowman. Lindsay was very happy and proud of her kids for how it turned out, so she took a picture of the snowman and sent it to her husband and her mom. At 4:02 p.m., Lindsay searched online for a medication called Miralax, which is a laxative. She also looked up a restaurant called Treebee. 45 minutes later, at 4:47 p.m., Lindsay searched for the CVS website, which is a pharmacy. Then she called another pharmacy and asked to speak with the manager. She had questions about Miralax, the medication. Lindsay checked the map on her phone to see how long it would take to go from her house to the pharmacy, from the pharmacy to the restaurant, and then back home, even though she didn't plan to go. She sent a message to her husband, who was working in the basement. That was where his office was, and she wrote to him, "I didn't make anything to eat. It's been a long day." And she asked if he could go to the pharmacy and then pick up food for the family. Lindsay ordered the food by phone, and Patrick just had to go pick it up. At 5:15, Patrick left the house. 15 minutes later, he's seen at the CVS pharmacy. The security cameras confirm that he was there. At 5:33, he calls his wife. But Lindsay didn't answer the call. A minute later, she calls him. According to Patrick, they only talked for a few seconds to ask about the medication. She answered directly and said, "I'm busy," so she hung up. Patrick said her voice sounded normal, so he didn't think much of it. After leaving the pharmacy, he went to the restaurant to pick up the food, and by 6 p.m., he was already back home. He said that as soon as he walked into the house, he had a bad feeling and knew something was wrong, especially because everything was so quiet. He couldn't see or hear his kids or his wife. He said he immediately got suspicious because he had 3 little kids. There was always noise in the house. Plus, as soon as he got home, it was normal for the kids to run up to him and say things like, "Daddy, Daddy, you're back." You know how kids are. So when that didn't happen, he started to get really worried and began shouting, "Lindsay, Lindsay!" But nobody answered. He was scared and started running through the house, looking for his wife and kids. He went upstairs and saw that the master bedroom was closed. Something unusual, since they usually kept the bedroom doors open. So he got closer, and again he had this bad feeling. He tried to open it, but it was locked. Patrick was really worried, and all he could think about was that he had to open the door. So he broke it down until he managed to get in. And as soon as the door opened, the first thing he saw was a lot of blood on the floor and the window open. He called 911 immediately. While he was making the call, he kept running through the house looking for his family. When he went out to the backyard, he found his wife lying on the ground. Her wrists and neck had been cut, and she had a severe wound on her neck because apparently she jumped from the second floor trying to take her own life. It was a fall of about 20 feet. Lindsay was still conscious, but she was in very serious condition. While Patrick was still on the 911 call, he asked Lindsay this: "Where are the kids?" And she answered, "In the basement." The ambulance arrived and took Lindsay to the hospital. While that was happening, Patrick went to the basement of his house. He walked down the stairs while crying. He said he was very scared and his legs were shaking. And then, when he got to the basement, he saw the horrible sight of his 3 children lifeless. They had been suffocated with exercise bands, those elastic ones. They had them tied around their necks. And as I write this, and as I repeat it to record, I feel very sad and shocked. I can't imagine what Patrick felt. He couldn't stop screaming in agony. He took the bands off his children's necks and begged them to breathe, but they were unconscious. Another ambulance arrived, and the 3 children were immediately taken to the hospital. Cora and Dawson passed away a few hours later at the hospital, while the 7-month-old baby fought for his life for 3 days. Sadly, he also passed away. It's a horrible story. It didn't just traumatize Patrick and his family. The detectives and paramedics who saw the crime scene say they're still in shock. The police officer in charge was crying when he saw this horrible scene and said that he had never seen anything so atrocious in his life. The news reached the media, and the whole community was talking about the case. But the people who knew Lindsay couldn't believe it. It seemed like she loved her family. She used to say that her children were the most important thing to her. And people describe her as a kind, happy, and caring person. She was a nurse. She liked helping others. So why did she do it? Lindsay was in the hospital and conscious. But even so, the hearing where she was charged with homicide and assault was held. After a few days, she regained consciousness, although the trial couldn't start because she was still in the hospital. But in February 2023, a month later, they held the hearing over Zoom. You can see her lying in the hospital, still recovering. The fall she suffered caused major damage to her spine, and she may end up paralyzed. The lead detective on the case and the doctors who treated Lindsay stated that from the moment she woke up, she was aware of what she had done to her children. On Friday, January 27th, she had just woken up and the doctor said she was already conscious, so the police could go in to question her. But she was still intubated, so she couldn't speak, which is why they gave her a small whiteboard to communicate. And the first question she asked the officers was, "Do I need a lawyer?" Just imagine, after taking your children's lives and then trying to take your own, the first question you ask is, "Do I need a lawyer?" Lindsay refused to make any statements, and at the trial, her lawyer said that Lindsay is currently aware of her actions. But before committing the crime, she was going through severe postpartum depression and was taking a lot of medication, which affected her judgment. I couldn't find exact figures online because they varied depending on the website and the country, but postpartum depression is a serious disorder that affects thousands of women after giving birth. Some symptoms include agitation and irritability, changes in appetite, feelings of worthlessness or guilt, feeling withdrawn or disconnected, and a lack of pleasure or interest in all or most activities. Loss of concentration, loss of energy, and trouble carrying out tasks at home or at work. And in severe cases, postpartum psychosis can develop. In fact, 17% of women who have postpartum depression develop psychosis. And these are some of the symptoms: seeing or hearing things that aren't there, feeling confused most of the time, having sudden mood swings within minutes. For example, crying hysterically, then laughing out loud, followed by extreme sadness. Trying to hurt yourself or your baby. Paranoia, thinking that other people want to hurt you. Restlessness or agitation. Behaving recklessly or in a way that's not normal for you. Sadly, there are many cases of mothers who take the lives of their newborn babies. It's something people don't talk about. It's not common to hear about it, but when I looked into it, I realized there are many cases like this. And postpartum depression can last a week, but it can also last forever. Going back to the case, in September 2022, shortly after Lindsay gave birth to baby Cowan, Lindsay started experiencing a lot of anxiety, so she went to see 2 different psychiatrists. She was diagnosed with generalized anxiety disorder and was prescribed medication to treat the condition. Although these medications didn't seem to be working. And between September 2022 and January 2023, Lindsay was taking 13 different medications. Not just for anxiety, but also for depression and insomnia. And from experience, since I've also taken these kinds of medications for those 3 conditions, depression, anxiety, and insomnia, I can assure you that when you mix so many medications, you don't feel well. You don't have mental clarity. Especially when I take the medication for sleep, the one for insomnia, I don't take it every day because I don't like how I feel the next day. I can't imagine how Lindsay felt taking 13 medications whose side effects are much more severe. Obviously, Lindsay wasn't thinking clearly. Patrick said that weeks before she committed the crime, Lindsay confessed to him that she was having suicidal thoughts. Did you know that many psychiatric medications cause suicidal thoughts? So if Lindsay had depression and they were giving her antidepressants, maybe they also gave her medication for anxiety. What can cause you to have suicidal thoughts? I don't know if I'm making myself clear, but I find it really frustrating and honestly illogical. Lindsay's lawyer said this at the trial. Your Honor, this was not a situation that was planned at all. This is a situation that is clearly the result of mental illness. Her psychiatrist was questioned and said that in September 2022, Lindsay underwent another evaluation and tested negative for postpartum depression. She tested positive for depression, but negative for postpartum depression. Postpartum, I don't know for what reason, so they could no longer declare her not guilty because she didn't have postpartum psychosis. Patrick didn't go to the hospital to see Lindsay, but she wanted to talk to him, so she asked one of the doctors for his cell phone and called him. Patrick didn't answer the calls, so she left him a voicemail saying, "I love you." On February 6th, 2023, she called him again. This time, he answered, and the first thing he said was, "Why did you do it?" To which Lindsay replied that it was because she had been hearing a voice that forced her and told her, "Take your babies' lives." She also added, "I had a psychotic episode." Patrick asked her to describe everything. She said she didn't know how to explain it, but she heard a man's voice forcing her to commit the crime, and then to take her own life afterward. She said that this voice told her, "It's your last chance." Patrick told all of this to the detectives and shared everything Lindsay had said. They asked him if Lindsay had ever mentioned anything before about a voice or a psychotic episode, and he said no. Lindsay had never said she experienced hallucinations, heard voices, or had symptoms of psychosis. Patrick knew that Lindsay kept a journal, so he looked for it, and when he read it, he didn't find any signs that she was going to commit this crime either. She only wrote about her family and how much she loved them, and of course, about her anxiety and medications. But she never mentioned anything about wanting to take her own life, much less take her children's lives. During the trial, it's very important to determine whether the crime was premeditated or not, and both sides try to convince the judge. Lindsay's lawyer said that she never showed any signs that she was planning to commit the crime. Everyone saw her as very happy with her children and said she was a great mom. But the opposing attorney said that not mentioning symptoms of psychosis before committing the crime was a sign that she didn't have postpartum psychosis. I also found a note from Lindsay that she had written on her phone in October, 3 months before committing the crime. This is what the note says. "I think I hold a bit of resentment toward my other children. Why did they stop me from treating Callan like he was my first baby? I know it's not fair to them, I know. I felt really depressed yesterday afternoon when Cora and Dawson got home from school. I know, it affects them, so we had a tough afternoon. I want to feel love and connection with all my children." But that same day, I wrote another note that said, "I want more children." The opposing attorney used this note, saying it was clear that Lindsay didn't want her children. But I think what this note really shows is that she knew she had postpartum depression, she felt guilty, and she clearly wasn't in the right state of mind or thinking clearly. The opposing attorney also stated that Lindsay had to squeeze her children's necks for at least 4 minutes each. So it took her about 12 minutes to do it. She had several minutes to change her mind and didn't. She also asked Patrick to go out and run errands. She sent him to the pharmacy to pick up food and then come back. And not only that, but she also checked the map to see how long the whole trip would take. This could indicate that she planned it. According to the attorney, she did it with deliberate premeditation and extreme atrocity and cruelty. The trial's still ongoing. If Lindsay is found guilty, she could be sentenced to life in prison. But it's a complicated case that has really divided opinions. Some people believe she deserves this sentence because of the harm she did to her children, but others defend her, saying it wasn't planned and that she wasn't mentally well. She suffered from depression, anxiety, and insomnia, and she was under the influence of a lot of psychiatric medications. Let me know what you think in the comments, because honestly, I'm not really sure how I feel about it. Part of me sympathizes with her. She was sick and sought help from different psychiatrists. She tried different medications. Obviously, she knew she was sick and wanted to get better. But on the other hand, I can't stop thinking about the harm she did to her poor children and her husband. Patrick wrote this. The shock and pain are intense. I constantly think about him. And with how little I sleep, I dream about them over and over again. Cora, Dawson, and Challen. They were the center of my life, and now I am completely lost without them. The next hearing in Lindsay's trial will be on May 2nd of this year. And that's it. That's the information about the case. As I mentioned, it's a very sad, very tough case. And also, like I told you a few moments ago, I'm not sure which side I'm on. So please tell me what you think in the comments section, because I love reading them. If you like the video, please give it a like. That helps other people see the video and for YouTube to recommend it, so you really help me out if you do it. So give it a like. If you haven't subscribed, you should subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you get notified every time I upload a new video. Follow me on my social media, and don't forget about my vlog channel and the podcast. I'll see you in the next video. Bye!